in a bit earlier session, almost almost a week ago. Okay, we have created a Spring Boot application. So I'll just repeat the steps involved in creating this Spring Boot application one more time for your conveniency. Okay. So this was our Spring MVC. Please don't get confused between a boot application as well as a normal Spring MVC application. Spring Boot application is nothing but add and small added advantage based thing, which is nothing but a Spring application itself. So here, what happens is in Spring Boot application, you need not worry about dependencies. You have to tell what type of starter project that you are looking at. Is it a web project, or is it a plain Spring Boot project? Are you looking at Hibernate related stuff also? All the things, and then it automatically brings in whatever is needed. So I'll just create a new project, and then while the time the project gets created, we can work on the old project which is already there. Okay, this is just to iterate, just to remind, refresh whatever we have done at a previous stage. So file, you could actually go with a new, and there is something called as Spring Starter project. Okay, this is what you have to create. Now this will ask you all the information that you wanted to give to your project. Let's say I'm giving my project name as, you know, TCL LS, loan against shares and securities. And I could have a folder with the same name. I just have to check. Do I have TCL LS project here in my D drive? I do. This can be a problem, but in the freshers B2 I am creating the new project. Okay, so here I will call this project TCL LAS without any hesitation. This is the name I wanted to give. Okay, so it says keep project name cannot contain spaces, so you can simply give TCL LAS. And what kind of project this is? Maven project. Maven project contains an XML called POM, and in that pom.xml you have to mention the kind of dependencies you are looking at. Dependencies are nothing but a tags, XML kind of tags we can have, which helps the project to import dependencies automatically from maven. For example, if you are looking at, um, let us say for example, if you are looking at a Spring Starter MVC, okay, then you can say the Spring Starter. So there are so many Spring Starter Web. So when you go here, this is the latest version 2.6.4, and this is what you need to mention. Okay, if you do not mention the version number, then what happens? Whatever the latest version, that will take. But you, let's say your Tomcat or your JVM or Java supports up to certain level, and you don't want to go beyond a particular version, then you can manually mention the version also. So here what happens when you bring this Spring Boot and then you are looking at Spring Boot Starter web project, this web itself will go and then bring all the jars that are required for running a Spring MVC web application. Am I clear? Something like that. So you simply have to mention whatever you are looking at. You can say starter for building a web, which includes in RESTful applications using Spring MVC. Uses Tomcat as the default embedded container. That means it also includes a Tomcat part also. Okay. So remember this part. Like what happens is it will bring all the dependencies which it requires. Well, you could actually see what are all it is bringing: Spring Web, Spring Web MVC, Spring Boot Starter with JSON, and then Tomcat. All of these are included as a group. So that's why it comes. However, what our project, the IDE is giving is a visual representation of what are all the dependencies that you wanted to bring in to your project. Okay. So what is a group? Well, my group is com.jokata. Okay. And then what is the base package name you wanted to go with? It is com.jokata.tcl.las, or you could call it as simply LAS. com.jokata.las. This is my group, which to the company that I belongs to, in which my root package I wanted to have it as com.jokata.las. And I want to give this description, loan against shares and mutual funds. And this artifact is TCLLAS. You could actually call this simply TCLLAS or TCLLAS. You can give anything, artifact name. Okay. Now, when you click on next, by the way, look at this packaging. Packaging is jar, or you can go for a var. So mostly Spring Boot projects, they will be delivered as jar, which is an executable jar. You will run, and it basically takes a public static void main, and then it will run your application, expecting anyone, to bring in the API call, asynchronous API call. So when you click on next, it will ask you, Deko Bhaiya, what are all the things you want me to include as a part of this project? The dependencies that you are looking at. By default, when you have taken something, it automatically brings in a requirement. Let's say I wanted to bring a web. So here, when I click on web, it automatically gives you the possible things. So I wanted to go with Spring Web Services and Spring Web. I want support for Jersey. These three I have taken. Look at this. Jersey is an implementation of Java X WS. So the original package was delivered by Java or declared by Java with interfaces Java X.ws, Java X.ws.rs. Yanaki REST services. So these packages contains all interfaces which are to be implemented by different servers to provide web service. Just like the servlet package contains all interfaces, the JDBC package contains all interfaces. These also contains only interfaces. Now these interfaces are implemented by different servers in different way and different people to provide much flexibility, better usability. Jersey is one of the famous implementation for web services. Okay. Now, apart from web, what else you want, Ram? Well, I am looking at Hibernate. When you say Hibernate, it will give you Spring Data JPA. I need this. And then what else you want, Ram? देखो भैया मेरे को SQL चाहिए, MySQL. I have added MySQL. What else you want? I'm looking at these developer tools. Okay, so Spring Boot developer tools. This helps me to bring in so many features. And then apart from that, are you looking at anything? For now, that's it. Okay, so if you are looking at anything, let us say REST, you could actually see not REST docs and all are there, but whatever is required, you have already have taken. For REST web services, whatever is required, you have taken. Okay, so just you have taken, and whatever is required, you have taken. Now you are ready to go ahead with your project. So this says key, this is URL. Now I am giving this URL here in our group. Anybody is interested, you can paste this URL, and a particular project is built on the fly and will be downloaded to you. You need not worry about creating this project again. So here I'm giving it in my in our chat group. So enter the URL, press enter in the address bar. You will get this project downloaded with all the jars required. Okay. Well, I said keep finish. Now what happens is it requires me basically to connect to the Jokata VPN in order to download whatever is required. Okay. Um, so what I will do, I'll first connect to VPN. This is because my mission is Jokata provided mission. To download any external jar or anything through our controlled central repository, I am supposed to connect it to Jokata network. Anything has to be downloaded through Jokata network only, nothing more than that. That's the only limitation. So that's sticky notes. Where is this? So this is connected to VPN. And now I actually will say run as Maven build. I'm just building the project so that every jar that I'm looking at will be downloaded. Before building, you could actually do something else. Right click, go to Maven, and then say update the project. First of all, it will try to update this project with whatever is required. Okay, and then it says key this project is also should be updated. It is an outdated project, but choosing this probably may result in so much of time. So but I'm still choosing it, so I wanted this to be updated with the latest version of whatever definitions of the project. Well, here in the TCL, now I will say right click, run as Maven build. This you can do it in this way. Other way, you could actually go for here uh, in this section. You can see this one run as, click here and then say run configurations. Here you need to configure compilation and execution of your application. Okay, so here if you see, there is something called as Maven built M2 plugin, which is built into Spring Tool Suite. In Eclipse, you can actually have this plugin from Eclipse Marketplace. Now select this one and click on new entry. Here is a new launch configuration. You are configuring how to compile your project, nothing more than that. Do not get scary about अरे यार राम क्या कर रहा है बोल के, कुछ नहीं. मैं अपना प्रोजेक्ट को कंपाइल करने का तरीका बता रहा हूँ. To whom? To this IDE. I'm telling this IDE कि dear IDE, you have to compile my project in this way. Okay, so I have taken this Maven build for the TCL LAS project. I have selected this, and here this is the name of the project. This is the compilation unit shortcut which I will be getting, and the project that I am looking at is for the TCL LAS. What are my goals? I wanted to clean the old jar if it is already generated, and install the jar file in my local M2 repository, and then package it so that it can be executed. Profiles, I can ignore this profile for time being, and I'm not interested in running any unit test cases in my project. For time being, I'm not writing, so I'll just skip the tests. Look at this. I have given a name, a unique name for this project to be identified, and I have chosen my workspace. Where is this one? This is the TCLS. I've chosen my workspace, and then these are my goals. Clean the existing jar space, install this jar into the local M2, then package, make it ready so that it can be run. And then I have selected skip the tests. So you can click on apply. Now you can also see sometimes it will have a workspace default GRE selected. By default, this is JDK 1.8. Fortunately, because I have set it while the time of creating the new workspace. As you remember, whenever you go for a new workspace, two things you need to set up. One is your JRE, second is your runtime environment. The third thing, when you are using Jupyter laptop, you have to set your SSH. So what is that SSH? We'll see what is that SSH later on. When you are supposed to pull your project, you need to click on SSH2 and then browse the security key file that was given to you. That actually acts as an authentication file for you to access Jupyter environment and then push or pull projects from our central repository. Okay, so I have selected all of them. Now I wanted to build the project. When I click on run, you could actually see this. When this project process starts, it is trying to download certain things and then it fails. So the Maven compiler plugin on the project is having an error. Hey, what is that Maven compiler plugin? Let us see this one. See, this Maven compiler plugin by default is taken from SpringBoot, org.springframework.boot. But whereas this is supposed to be coming from org.apache. Something. Okay. So here we need to get this setting from any of the previous project if we have. Okay, so here I have a shopping cart application, and look at this. What is that I have here is this is taken from org.apache.maven.plugin. And what is this? This is a Maven compiler plugin, and it uses the source of Java 1.8. How about here? This is also same thing, but this is taken from sorry, here This is taken from SpringBoot. This is the only change. So what I will do here is I'll simply take out this within the plugin, Control C, and I'll put it over here, Control V. Okay, you can have it saved at some place, and then use it while the time of creating your project. So here I'll close this. Now I have set the compiler part, and I'll try to run this command one more time. Here, click here and then click on TCLLS. What is this? This is a compiler thing. So when I click this, it will start compiling. And this time, because I'm connected to Jupyter VPN, it will try to download all the jars that are required. Okay. And then you can see the snapshot jar, everything is being set to C users ram.darvibler.m2 repository com.jupyter.tclls. This is the project. And within this project, it has created each and everything. And that's it. My project is been built. Fair enough. What else is required? It is required to configure this PALM file to a certain extent to, Java version. Is it the 11 what we are using? Is it the 11 what we are using?
Yes, sir.
अरे यार फिर तो
No, sir. 8.
तो इधर जाओ अपना बिल्ड पाथ में कॉन्फ़िगर बिल्ड पाथ में जाके देखो दिस इज यूजिंग 11 which we do not have. Remove it and to this libraries you have to add a library. What is that one? JRE system library. And what I'm looking at is workspace default JDK. I've selected finish and this has been added. I'll say apply and I'll say apply and close. So this is a problem. Now here, what is that? Here we have is 1.8. This is what you are supposed to have. It's not 11 because you have changed your build path also. Happily keep it as 1.8 and control S. That's all. Now things are unique. Am I clear? ओके व्हाट एल्स वी नीड टू कस्टमाइज राम आपने बोला था कुछ तो कस्टमाइज करने का है ये मायस्क्यूएल कनेक्टर ना मुझे रन टाइम में नहीं कंपाइल टाइम में भी चाहिए सो आई विल रिमूव दिस स्टेप नंबर 1 MySQL connector Java I do not need it at runtime but I also need it at compile time so I have removed the scope as runtime. Okay, so this is step number 1 which you need to remember. Remaining I don't touch. Control S, point number 1. So here I mean this is first step. This is step number 1. Step number 2, there are two different kind of projects that you can create. One kind of project which is a purely API based. Second, a project which is an MVC based, yani ki which returns JSP as a view. What if you are looking at a hybrid project? A project which can serve on the basis of APIs also, and a project which can return a JSP page also. In that case, you are expected to add few more dependencies here. First thing, these projects do not have your servlets or JSPs. Please understand. That's the first point you need to know. In this TCLLS project, if you go to Maven dependencies and then see, you would have everything. But you don't see servlet-API or JSP-API kind of stuff. That is there built into Tomcat. Okay. But you do not have them explicitly set so that they can parse JSP. So you have to take a parser into picture who can explicitly help Tomcat to parse the JSP pages, and also have to take the dependency of understanding servlets and JSP as well as the JSTL. So you need a dependency of JSTL, you need a dependency of servlets, you need a dependency of Tomcat JSP parser. Jasper is what we call him as, embedded Jasper for Tomcat. Okay, and the built-in Tomcat, which handles API, you also need a starter Tomcat, an explicit Tomcat server, which can help him to take servlets or JSP based request and then serve him. So what all you require is these three dependencies which are here. You can see this one. One is the dependency for the servlets, which is JSTL. Another is your embedded Tomcat Jasper, which will parse the JSP pages. The third one is Mr. Tomcat Starter, which will be actually serving as a helper to the Tomcat. However, if you have to see these two are already there as a built-in behaviors of Tomcat. So you would tell key this scope of this is already provided. Spring has provided this already. We are just enabling the extra features of them. That's what you are mentioning. So take out these three dependencies, Control C, and then put it over here. So the below three dependencies, what is the purpose of these below three dependencies? Tell me. The below three dependencies are required if you are enabling MVC views. Make clear? So in your project, if you are looking at MVC views, the below three dependencies are required. Right? Getting this point? Okay, so providing the scope as provided is the key here, the point you need to remember, because Mr. Tomcat is already there with us. We are just adding him an extra enabling functionality, and this dependency helps us to, write our scriptlets kind of stuff. एक minute रुको यार. Hello. Sorry guys. Okay. Well, I have added them because I have added. My intention is to rebuild my project so that these dependency related jars also included as a part of my project. We have auto build capabilities, and I'm expecting actually Maven dependencies might have added them already. Might have added. You can like if you are not sure, and then you could actually build it one more time. Select the TCL LAS, go here and build it. Okay. So look at this here. You might see this guy is again recompiling and then building. Everything is fine. So I have got my files here. Right. Now this is step number two. What was the step number one? What was the step number one? Removing the scope of runtime to MySQL. What was step number two? Step number two is optional. If you are looking at Spring MVC JSP pages to be returned in your project, add them. Ram, I am not interested. Don't add them. Pretty simple. Okay. If you are interested to return JSP pages in your project, then it is required. If not, it is not required. Simple. Well, your project is 80% ready. Why 80% ready, Ram? You know what? Like Spring MVC based things, they require Mr. Web Initializer, a dispatcher servlet to identify incoming calls directly made on the name of JSP pages, or a model and view has to return something else. So the Java file which is given to us as the com.jokata.ls package may application file, this person simply is running himself, that's all. But he does not have a dispatcher servlet capabilities. To provide him that one, we have to add this simple piece of code to him, this one. So he extends Spring Boot servlet initializer. He just not an application, but he also extend a servlet initializer. So he himself will work as a initializer, which will enable dispatcher servlet. Okay, now I will come down here and then we'll try to add this, and this one Spring will become TCLLAS application dot class, and all of them you have to auto import. Control spacebar, he will be imported. Click here, control spacebar, he will be imported. Control S. Well, my application is ready to return a web page now. Excellent. But you all know that web pages are made or placed in web apps folder. Yes or no? Right? We where was, like, see, look at this Spring MVC app. Where was our these things are available? src main web app. Yes or no? Web app, webnf, and here we have views, and in the views we have our JSP pages. This was our style, right? Right or wrong? Yes, this was our style. Excellent. So here we have to create the same kind of structure. Web app followed by webnf followed by views. So let me create. So here in my current project TCLLS, src main, and I have Java and resources just like that. Okay. And after Java, I need to create a web app. So here in the main section, right click, go for a new folder. And this is web app. So that's created. And this step is purely if you are looking at JSP model and view pages to be written. Who knows? If your project requires, you may have to do. So I'm teaching you everything. Okay. In the web app, I will create one more new folder, which is web hyphen inf. I will also create Mr. Meta hyphen inf if required. Right click, new folder, meta hyphen inf created. And in the web INF folder, I'll create a new folder called views. This is where I wanted to keep my views. Now within the views, I will be having all my JSP pages. For timing, I wanted to create a small JSP page. So JSP page, I will call this JSP page as my test JSP, test page.jsp. So I'll click on, or I could say hello.jsp. I'll call this as hello.jsp and finish it. So here I will say h1 hello, welcome to MVC view using SpringBoot. And this is just a JSP page. Because of this, I'll say h3. Just wanted to show you today is triplet is equals to new date java dot util dot date dot to local string. All right, so this is what I have. Control C. Now this is a small JSP page. My intention was to print it. Okay, so here I close this hello.jsp. Well, this application is ready, and what my expectation is, whenever I try to call this hello, somebody has to return me hello. You know that controllers only will return hello. Now where do we create controllers and all? Please understand, when it comes to Spring Boot application, the package in which this TCL LS application or your project or your project specific application file, you know uh, it is there, right? So the same package is considered as your root package, and all other packages has to be its subsequent packages. Why so, Ram? This is because your Spring Boot application here contains something called as component scan, and this component scan is set from this base package to the downstairs sub packages. Because of this reason, you always have to have your package name starts from com.joka.las dot. Now this com.joka.las dot package only can supply the component. Other packages cannot supply the components. Okay. Similarly, I'll say right click new package. So what should I say? Dot controller if I'm looking at a controller. Similarly, if I'm looking at an entity, I will say, a package com.toco.ls dot entity or model, whatever you wanted to give it as give. Now here, on the head of this fellow, I'll have to tell, if this is Hibernate based, I need to tell him which package he is supposed to go and then scan. So I'll say at the rate entity scan, and I could mention the base packages where he need to go is here. What is the base package? Com dot jupyter.lis.entity. So this is the package where he need to go and scan for entities. Then the Hibernate, whenever you say an entity name in the HQL, when you wanted to get an entity from, it will happily go there and then scan the entity from. Pretty simple. So nothing more than that you need to work on. Just these two will help you to run your Spring APIs, Spring MVC, and Spring Hibernate very smoothly. So how many steps we have done so far? Step number one, create a Spring Boot project. Step number two, go to your pom.xml and then make Mr. MySQL available at compile time also by removing the scope as runtime. Step number three, you have added required dependencies for Spring MVC. Step number four, you have added project hierarchy or a structure where you wanted to keep your JSP pages and added a sample JSP page also. And then step number five, you have added servlet initialization capabilities to your TCL application. And then you have added entity scan part and making sure that the packages are acting as sub packages to this Mr. You can say refresh here. All right. So this Mr. TCLLS have different packages, controller entity and all. Now in the controller, I would like to create new controllers class. Well, please understand this guy. I wanted to show you two controllers. One is an API controller and one is a model and view based MVC controller. Let's say I'll call him MVC controller. And then उसके बाद I'll try to create another class and उसका नाम रखता हूँ मैं class uh, REST API controller. So who are these two guys? This guy helps us to return a model and view page. So here a controller who can return a model and view. Two separate classes I'm writing to avoid your confusion. Nothing more than that. I actually can write them in a single controller also. For you people to practice easily and to identify the difference, I'm writing as a two separate classes. Okay. So how about this guy? This guy is a controller who who uh, serves who serves REST API and who serves as REST API and returns JSON. Okay. Now, how about this one? This controller who can return a model and view, and he can who can serve as a controller and return a model and view. Okay. This is what it is all about. Now, on the head of this fellow, I can actually say REST controller or I can actually say controller because he is expected to return a model and view. Now, what is the difference between controller and a REST controller? When REST APIs are developed, there are many kind of responses that you can give. All MIME types, text by HTML, text by plain, application by JSON, application by PDF, all that kind of stuff. The one what you return is represented by something called as response body. If you are sending a complete JSON object as response, that's called as response body. So REST controller is basically a combination of controller and response body. I'll just show you. I will say REST controller, and when you place your mouse over there, you could actually see he contains controller as well as response body. Hope this is understood, right? So a normal controller requires this response body to be placed on the head of the method if you are returning a JSON kind of stuff. Whereas the REST controller, he himself contains this. So you need not worry about to place it. Now here, I will make him a plain controller. So I have a controller and I have a REST controller. Pretty fine. So what is the purpose of this fellow? This fellow is to return this hello.jsp. Okay. And here you wanted to supply some name also, he can supply over here, whatever it is. Okay. Hello, I could say scriptlet is equals to dollar name. So here I wanted to print the name. So you don't require this scriptlet is equals to false if I'm not mistaken. So well, remove. Okay, hello dollar name. Welcome to MVC. So here you could place comma and then see what happens. Let's see what happens. I just said dollar name. This is JSTL script I'm using to read request.get attribute of name. So here in the controller, MVC controller, I'm expecting a name to be sent to this hello.jsp. So here I am writing a small function, a public return type model and view, model and view. And what is that one? Let's say hello, which will take at the rate request parameter, request param, which is coming in the name of name, and I will grab it or read it in the form of string name. Well, my intention is to return model and view object mv is equals to new model and view on hello. This is my JSP name, and then mv dot add object of this comma name. So here it is name, and the what is that I am adding over here is the one what I am receiving. Okay, whatever I am receiving here, I'm passing it as a name. So and then once I have added, I'll simply say return MV. That's all. So I have added the input, or I could say call this as a caller name. Okay, which is basically a caller name, and this caller name is what I am supplying here as an object, control S, but I am supplying this with the name of something called as name. So this name attribute has to be read in the JSP page. Okay, so if I pass this as a caller name, then if I pass it as a caller's name, and then at the receiver level here, this is supposed to be caller. Understood, na? Well, this is my first controller, which returns model and view, which also accepts a request parameter. So whenever I wanted to call this, I need to supply a URL, an API URL. So I'll say @get mapping, and what is that I'm planning to supply here? Slash say hello. So somebody asked me say hello and supplies me this caller name as a request parameter. I will return him the JSP page. And in the JSP page, I am saying hello to the person who is calling me. Okay. Well, this is a simple one. And then in the REST controller also, I would like to do the same kind of stuff. I'll say @get mapping. Look at this. Slash say hello, or I could say hello REST API. This is the name of that. Okay. Hello REST API. And here I am trying to say public. What is the return type? Look at this. I wanted to return a response entity of any type and say hello, or I could say simply hello REST API. Now this hello REST API, what I'm expecting is to return a JSON object. Now, this hello REST API is supposed to return a JSON object. Okay, the method must return a result of type response entity. वो तो सही है. I need to grab request also, right? So the way the controller grabs the request, the same way this fellow also will grab the request. However, I will take this request as a JSON. So at the rate request body is the tag which will help me to grab the entire request coming in the form of a string, which is string JSON input or JSON request. You can call with anything. Now the JSON request what I'm receiving will contain a format of like this. Something like this. Okay, so this is the JSON format, And within the JSON format, whatever I have received, my intention is to say hello to this person. Okay. But the way I return a JSON response will be quite different than the way you are returning from a JSP page. So I will take the help of something called as JSON object to get this string in the form of an object so that I can read each and every key and value. Okay. Well, here I'll say JSON object, which is taken from org.json.json. Well, I think we haven't added that one. Please understand. That is to be added compulsory.
डिपेंडेंसी
Dependency. ये वाला ये वाला
फॉर्म प्रोटेक्शन
com.xml में ये वाला डिपेंडेंस हम लोग भूल गए थे. मैं इधर आ गया एंड okay, that's the dependency for the JSON object. So control S. Now you could actually see this guy has built it, and now I'll come back to my code. Now I will say JSON object org.json.json object. I'll say JSON is equals to new JSON object, which can be created on a string. So this guy always basically can be created based on a source. So what is the source I have is my JSON request. So from the JSON request, which looks like above, I am creating a JSON object. And from here, I would like to grab this caller name. So I'll say a string caller name is equals to the above JSON dot get the string coming on the name of caller name. This is the key. So if the key is caller name, it will return me Ram Shankar as a value over here. Well, the value that I have taken, which is a caller name, has to be said hello to him. So here I would like to say, I wanted to return a JSON again as a response, So I'll say JSON object, JSON response is equals to new JSON object created in this way. Now this is my response object. लेकिन इसके अंदर कुछ है क्या? Do you have any keys or values inside it? No, no, no. I wanted to put it. I'll say JSON response dot put key and value. So what is the key I wanted to put? I wanted to put hello message. And what is that I wanted to put? I will keep it over here. So I will say whatever the caller name you wanted to say hello to him, right? So you could say a string response is equals to, you can form here. Hello caller name, welcome to the REST API. So I have my response string like this, and this response string I am passing here as my response. Now this JSON response is to be returned. So I'm returning it by in this way. So I'll say return new response entity of type string. Okay, what is the entity you wanted to return? I wanted to return this JSON response dot to string comma. I can also return a status. Things are going fine. I'll say HTTP status dot okay. accepted, rejected, whatever you wanted to return, you can also return a status. Now, the way you are returning here, this is a small response values that you are returning back to, some receiver. Now he will take the responsibility of framing this output into a page like this, the way we have, done our work, right? So I'll remove this studio part unnecessarily. Okay, Control C. Here it says ki welcome to MVC View Spring Boot. And how about this one? This returns welcome to REST API, or I could say Spring Boot REST API. Okay, so this is all about. I have two controllers. One returns a view, another returns a JSON. Clear up to this part?
Yes, sir.
देखो अब क्या करना चाहिए हमें. Now in order to run this fellow, first of all you try to run the fellow. You actually can configure him to run, but you will end up with few errors. Let me first of all show you that error, and then we can actually configure. This is that in your pom.xml you specifically mention that you are looking at a connector which is available at compile time, and you also have mentioned that you are looking at Spring Starter JPA. When you say Spring Starter data JPA, it completely brings a Hibernate dependency, and you know that Hibernate has to be given inputs like this: that what is the driver class name, what is the data source, what is the username, what is the password, what is your database, and then what is the dialect. All this stuff has to be given, correct or not? Have you mentioned anywhere here? Did we mention anywhere so far?
No, sir.
No, we haven't mentioned. And सबसे पहला ये वाला, if you wanted to return this poor fellow model and view, where is your view resolver? Have you mentioned anywhere? Right? So these are supposed to be configured. These are pending. So where do we configure now? ऐसे हमारे पास configuration file है ही नहीं, correct or not? Do we have any configuration file? Yeah, we have. This is the only fellow. So here shall we return all the beans? That is one way. Yes, you can return all the beans within this one. That is one way. The better way is to configure them in something called as application properties. Okay, so if you have seen this project, there is a section called resources. Here you could actually see an application properties section. Open this application properties. There is nothing. First of all, you need to tell what is your context name. By default, the project name itself is taken as a context name 99.9% of the cases. Let's say your project name is a bit longer, Spring Boot MVC Web App, इतना बड़ा project है, and you wanted to give a shorter name, that's called as a context name, which will be used as a root URL after the server name to identify your project. So that kind of setting, and your database data source settings, and then your Hibernate settings, and finally your view resolver settings, all of them comes in this application properties. So here you actually generally what we do, we generally add sections like this. This is to comment, hash is to comment. Let's say server properties. So I'll say server dot port. What is the port? You tell me 8081, 8082, whatever you wanted to say, you can be. And then you can say server dot servlet dot context path. So what is the context path you wanted to give? You can give TCL LIS, and you have to mention this like this. Or you wanted to give only LIS, you can give only LIS. It's up to you. So you can give TCL LIS or LIS, whatever. You know what? This is going to be your context path. So whenever you wanted to access the root of this package, it should be something like, let's say you are running it in local, then http colon slash slash localhost colon 8080 slash LAS, and then the remaining URI has to be given. Whatever the URI you wanted to give, that you can give. This is one setting. Then how about another setting? The other setting is about data source settings. So here you can say spring dot data source dot, these are all comes under data source properties. Okay, URL, whatever you wanted to give. Well, spring dot data dot driver name, URL, username, password, all of that you can give. Similarly, these properties, I already have it here kept aside for your conveniency. These are the properties. Okay. So I just copy them and then put it over here. Look at them. These are data source properties. The above are server properties, and then these are data source properties. JDBC colon MySQL localhost 3306 Amazon username, password, and my driver class name. And then Hibernate properties are like show SQL, Hibernate dialect, and look at this Spring JPA database platform. Origin Hibernate dialect and MySQL 5 dialect. It is the same thing. Please remember, because you are using Spring JPA but not the Hibernate directly, you are supposed to mention the JPA that your database platform is using the above dialect. So both of these properties are supposed to be set. Remember this point. And then here is your view resolver properties. What is the prefix and then what is the suffix? You have mentioned WebINF views and .jsp as your suffix. This concludes the properties to be configured for a Spring MVC or a REST API and data-driven Hibernate-based web application. इसमें कुछ changes हो गए क्या राम? नहीं नहीं नहीं, ये always fix रहेगा. The only difference is here your database name will change and probably your driver, username, password. This stuff might change, okay, based on project to project. But more or less, properties are same. Any doubts so far? Have a look at these properties. You may note down if you want. Anyway, I'm going to share this code with you, but what I'm trying to say is you can take a screenshot of this and then keep it with you always. Clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Somebody tell me the steps. What is the first step? Create a
Spring Boot starter project.
then
Add SQL.
dependencies of MVC. What are all the dependencies we are adding? One is JSTL, another is Jasper, another is Tomcat starter. What is the star point to be noted? Scope as provided. Third one, remove scope of runtime for
Party time.
connector. Okay. Then fourth one, if you want to work with JSON object, add dependencies of org.json.json. Okay, so this you will be having. Then what is the fifth step? Configure.m2 plugin for building project. So what are all the goals that you need to give? Set the goals to clean, install, package, and set your JDK also. Okay, and then what is the sixth step?
Properties file.
नहीं बेटा, configure Spring Boot application class to extend Spring Boot servlet initializer. Okay, and then second step, sorry, seventh step. Then what is the seventh step? Add @, entity scan package 2 to the package where you are storing all Hibernate entity classes. or entities, I could say. Then the eighth step. So you have done the configuration part. Then now you need to add necessary properties to application dot
properties file.
properties file. So what are all that you are basically looking at is server props and then data source props, right? Then Hibernate props and then view reservoir props. Okay, these are the four that you have added. Then finally build the project for downloading all required jars as dependencies, and then as a 10th step add controllers as per requirement and run the project. This is what you need to do. Clear? Anything so far? Doubt? Or I could say, instead of adding controls, we simply run the project and then check whether it is running or not. Okay, run the project and test. Well, these are the steps that are involved to create a Spring Boot based, REST API based, Spring MVC based, Hibernate based project. Okay, let's run the show. So I'll come down here because I have everything. So the TCL, by the way, from 11th step, you probably will be adding whatever based on your requirement. So here, as a 11th step onwards, add controller, DAO, entity, service as per the requirement. Okay, and yes, controller, DAO, service, and then JSP as per your requirement. This is what you are supposed to do. Am I clear on this point? Okay, JSP said you also have request payload and response payload. These are all the things that you generally will be adding in order to work on this one. Yeah, and in this project you haven't added something called as Hibernate util. We will add them. Okay, slowly we will add them, not immediately. First of all, today the intention is to create a Spring Boot project and run it, and then call the REST API using this fellow Postman and calling that one through browser. Let us see this. So here I come and then build my project one more time to see if at all any errors are there. I build it. Build successful. Now I need to run. So let me configure how to run this project. So here again I'll click here, go to run configuration section, and here in the run configuration you have a Spring Boot app. You see this one? This is the one who runs your project. So click here, new. So what is that you wanted to configure is new configuration is TCL LS is my configuration. What is the project you wanted to run? TCL LS project. What is the main type? Here you can search, and then it by default searches the application main file. Sometimes in your project you may have more than one java.main public static void main file. Then all of them will be shown here. For now, in this I have only one publish static void main file. I have selected it. And profile, what is profile? We will see what is profile in tomorrow session. They go in your project, this project goes under different kind of modes. Initially it is in your system. This is called as a developer system, developer mode, and then it will be deployed into dev environment for your local testers. You are still in developer mode, and then this is moved to UAT, and then the service calls addresses will be changed from your dev server address to UAT server address. Then this is called as UAT mode, and from there it will be moved to CUG, which is production. Then that's called production mode. So the URLs which are there in your local will differ from the URLs which are there in dev server of Jakarta, and they will also differ from the URLs which are there in UAT, and the same will differ from the URLs which are there in production. Correct? All your APIs. So because, and even the database server, username, password, all of stuff, this will change from your local to dev server to UAT to production. That means you have to change the application property related properties so many times, these properties so many times. And how about it, like every time you override, and then the old properties are gone. What if you wanted to run this application again in your local? You will stuck. So what we do, we create multiple application property files as profiles. Okay, so the profile decides what kind of properties you are setting. So I will have dev.application.properties, and then dev underscore application.properties. Another is prod underscore application.properties. Another is UAT underscore application.properties, and then local underscore application.properties. Something like that. I can have many application properties. And then here you need to say when you are running, what kind of application properties you wanted to choose. So here, if you have more than one application properties, you will be having your profile to be selected. So we'll be discussing about profiles a bit later. For time being, chalega. Okay. Now I don't touch that one. So I have taken this and then see the JRE. What I have is the JRE which is built in a Spring Boot project. Okay. Shows some error. Maven build configure with the same name already exists. Achha, okay. So you give the name as underscore ls. That's it. Nothing more than that. So it says ki TCL ls is already there. Here it is a configuration, right? So we will call this as TCL underscore ls to run. Or I could call this as TCL ls app because this is an executable application. Okay, JRE compatible with the project and compatibility as 18. So I'm not interested in that one, project JRE, and I will say apply and close. So did I change the JRE or not, by the way? Build path, configure build path. The JDK is 1.8 only. Properties. Chalo, we'll try to run this one. So because we have configured that one, here we will come and then say run configurations. And here I have my TCL LS app and it is unable to run. It says problem with the JDK. Alternate JRE, JDK 1.8. JDK 1.8 only. Execution environment is having. Well, it has run anyway. The compatibility issue was there. I think it was still there, but it has run. Do not worry. So you can see here, this has started on the port 8080 with the context path as /LAS. Okay, let me call this. Okay, let me call this. So I'll minimize this fellow and I'll come here to my web environment. I'll say http colon slash slash localhost colon 8080 slash /lis. When I say, it will get a white labeled error page because you have not mentioned any resource that you are looking at. So the resource that I'm looking at is a MVC based controller is there in my project, right? So how many controllers we have written? We have written two controllers. One is MVC controller, which is calling say hello, and then it is expecting a caller name, expecting a caller. So here I'll try to call that say hello. Say hello, question mark, caller name is equals to Ram Shankar. Now you can see the web page is been written. Hello Ram Shankar, welcome to MVC View using Spring Boot.
So
This
10
is
minutes.
working. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
ठीक है ना? तो ये वाला है. This is written by our normal controller, which is written as a model and view. The caller name is taken and it is been passed to hello.jsp. Now I'll bring this hello.jsp beside this fellow, and the hello.jsp says ki hello so and so, whatever the name. Welcome to MVC View Spring Boot project. This is the one. Let's say, for example, here, if you have added scriptlet is equals to new date dot toString and mentioning that today is so and so, control S, and here if I refresh, I'm expecting a date to be displayed. So this is a simple way of returning a JSP page as a response. What is the other way? The other way is using the APIs. Here, the both request and response happens in the form of JSON string, which is uniquely accepted throughout the IT world. The best way of sending request and response, easiest way of sending request and response in the form of properties, which will simply contain key value, key value, key value. Okay, so let's see how this works. Like basically, what is this one? Hello REST API slash hello REST API. So I'll come down here and I'll try to call this fellow http colon slash slash localhost colon 8080 slash ls slash say hello. Say hello na? No. Sorry. Hello REST API. This one. Okay, hello REST API. This is my path. I'll come back and here I will say, what is the path I'm supposed to call? Hello REST API. Okay, now this is a get. Is it a get method? It is a get method. Okay, and what it is expecting? It is expecting a body which is of type string and which is JSON. So this is what I am expecting. Okay, now I will come down here to the body. I will select, it's not raw, and this is going to be a JSON. It's a JSON. So here, whatever I have, I will supply here. And you can say beautify, it looks like this. Caller name is Ram Shankar. So what is the response I'm expecting here? When I supply this as a caller name Ram Shankar, the same is being taken to build a response string as hello caller name. Welcome to REST API Spring Boot. So here it is welcome to MVC Spring Boot, and this is welcome to REST API Spring Boot. This is what I'm expecting as a response. तो चलो भैया चेक करते. Send. See, this is what it is. 200 OK is the status. And what is the hello message? Hello Ram Shankar. Welcome to the Spring Boot. So this will be written to your Angular page. Now you people have to have a way to read this one, hello message, and then display it on the page. Am I clear? Understood?
Yes, sir.
So, badhiya. So this is the one how we actually, will interact with an outside person till our application. This is, please understand, this is from an outsider till our application. Now, within our application, you already know, you have already implemented it in Spring MVC. The way you have developed the DAO, DOIMPL, all that stuff will work in the same way here also. The only difference that you have observed is here, you have a manual intervention of adding libraries. Here, this is done through Maven. Apart from that, do you really see any big challenge between Spring Boot and the normal Spring application? It is all about how you configure it for the first time.
Yes, sir.
The entire pain of yours is taken only for half an hour to 1 hour when you create an application. Once you have created, places the configuration in the place. That's all. Your project is now compatible with both REST API as well as for MVC. It is how simple. Understood, right? So you need to know the steps one after another. The way how we have written over here, the same way you have to do. Am I clear? Now, based on that, if if I ask you to further develop this service to take input of uh, a category and add it to a category, how do you write it? It is pretty simple. Instead of taking caller name, now we need to take category and then we have to save it to the category, correct? So how do you do that? So we will see that one. Okay, that's our next work. And then we will discuss about profiles. We will see how do we work with get and save APIs. And then we will see how do we call an outside web service. Let us say there is a third party web service available in the cloud, and we have to call that service and get some response and then show it to the end user. So these three will be discussed tomorrow. Understood. So tomorrow, Shweta ma'am is going to out of station. Some family functional occasion is there. Okay, so she'll be taking tomorrow first session. Today she'll take in the afternoon, right? But tomorrow first off she'll take, and I will be taking the post lunch session. And then Monday and Tuesday we have two sessions a day. We'll be completely discussing Java only and REST APIs, and you will learn each and everything. Okay. Am I clear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
no, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. The last point for today, before we close, the last point for today. This is okay if you are, getting only one or two elements. What if you are getting so many elements as a part of this JSON request string? Let's say you are getting some 100 inputs. This is not the correct way, right? If you do it in this way, changing this controller code will result in a big pain to you people. So what we generally do is we create request and response payloads representing this JSON string. I repeat, I repeat. We create request payload as well as response payloads which represents this JSON strings, and then we assign values to it and then we return it. So the same thing what you have seen here, now we will see, I repeat, we will see in the form of request and response models. Okay, that's the only thing I wanted to discuss. So here I have controller and I have entity. Now I will add two more packages. The package name is dot request and the other package name is dot response. So the request contain all request payloads, response contains all response payloads. So here I'll say right click new Java class and the name is hello request. And here in the response I'll write new Java class hello response. Okay. Now both of them I will mention these people implements serializable. Why do they implement serializable? Because the data has to be passed securely between two nodes. So he must be implementing serializable. So add serialization ID to him. It is done. And what else required? You have to declare the elements or the keys that are coming as a part of your request. For instance, I am getting a caller name as an input, and to this caller name I will supply respect to setters and getters. Well, my request is ready. Similarly to the response, if I wanted to give, okay, I will say implements serializable and I will add a generated ID for him. And what is that I wanted to return is private string hello message. and here I will say source generate getters and setters control is fair enough. Okay, you can also give a status and other stuff if you wanted to give, but for timing I'm just keeping simple for you people to understand how this can be done. Now I come down here, look at this, and to the same hello rest API, I'll slightly change at the rate get mapping hello, or I could say key get hello message. This is the API. It is one and the same thing, honestly speaking. So I would say here Control C, Control V. This one is get hello message at the request body. Instead of string JSON request, I would take this. Repeat. I would take this as hello request. Request. Whoa, whoa, whoa! What is this? Can you take that directly as a Pojo file? The answer says yes, you can take. Okay, so here it is. What Java will do is it will take the JSON and it will try to map all incoming elements keys to the properties which you have declared in hello request. Whoever matches, it will assign it. And on the head of this fellow, you could actually mention something. Let us say if you are getting any extra things which are not there in this one, you can say at the rate JSON ignore. So this actually, basically is to hello getters, hello setters, all that stuff. Ignore unknown is equals to true. Okay, if you don't know anything basically which are passed, you can ignore them. The meaning of that is by default it generally looks at what is getting mapped. Sometimes you may get tags as an extra by a sender which are not there as a part of your request, then I'll ignore them. That is the meaning. So I'll say Control C and then put it on the head of this guy also. Control V, Control S. That's all. So now whatever I'm sending, for example, the other guy has an object which he is receiving it. And then I can simply ignore whatever I mean, like he can also ignore something like that. Now I just come down here. Sorry, I'll just come down here. I said request body is mapped to hello request basically. So that means whatever you are, giving, it can be mapped to hello request automatically. This is one way directly. Second way is like this. Public response entity of this one get hello message at the rate request body string JSON request. I'm still taking JSON request. Okay. So within the JSON request, what am I supposed to do is I would take the help of object mapper, which is coming from factor XML. Mapper is equal to new object mapper. Okay, and from this fellow I will try to map that one. Let's say I'll say hello request. Request is equals to mapper dot, okay, uh, atavo mapper dot disable enable. Read value, and you could actually supply JSON request, and the output you are looking at is hello request dot class. So ये वाला by default it throws an exception. You are supposed to handle this exception. Okay. So what you can do is here is equals to null, and then below you can say a try catch exception E, and here you could actually see this request is equals to mapper dot read value. Okay. Well, this is what you will do. So here you can say E dot print stack trace. Well, this is another way of reading. So this is the first way where this action, what you are doing over here, right? This will be done by the Spring framework for you, and you would be receiving the hello request object directly framed from the input JSON request. Okay, now what is that is being pending is we are supposed to return the message over here, this one, message over here, right? So we actually can return that either in the form of JSON. Similarly, if you wanted to generate object to string also, read value as a string. There is another method called read value as a string. So it actually reads a value from a given POJO into a JSON. So here, what I can do is I can say the hello response is equals to new hello response, and then to this fellow response dot set hello message as hello plus where is the caller name, by the way? We have taken the request right from here, request dot get caller name plus welcome to whatever you wanted to say. Okay. Now you have set this as a response. Now you need to return this. All you need is return new response entity of type. What is the type? Hello response. Okay. And here you need to supply response comma HTTP status as okay. Done. This is the actual way we work in Jupyter. This is also a way. Well, this is completely agreed allowed. Well, what happens is this actually make your code so clumsy. So you are supposed to, or you are expected, because you never know, the request can be a similar or a bigger or a larger, I don't know. So I always create request and response classes which are representing my JSON request and JSON response, and accordingly I will act. But here I will not get the burden of framing the JSON object. So I read the request directly as a request, or I actually can do that either of the way. So here I'll try to comment out this piece of code for your conveniency. You could please try that, practice it also. Control S. Okay, here I'm trying to read an object directly in this case, and I'm trying to return an object directly. Right, great. So I'll go back here and we'll try to build this project one more time. Because I've done so many changes, I'm trying to build this project. Okay. It is actually I'm supposed to stop the server, my mistake. The server is on and I'm building, my mistake, and I will build it one more time for my satisfaction. It is successful, and I'll try to run that project here, TCLLS app. It has run. Well, I will try to call this get hello message now. Okay, please understand. The one which I have called is hello REST API previously, the caller name is going. Here also it is the same thing. The only difference is here, the request what I'm passing as a JSON is automatically converted to a request object, and a response object which is returned by them is again automatically converted as a JSON object for my convenience. So let me see whether I'll get it or not. Control C, and I'll go back to my this fellow, Control V, and I'll call it. Did it? Yes or no? Hope you are getting this
Yes,
point.
sir.
Okay, so
Yes, sir.
this actually reduces most of your burden of depending on the JSON object creation and the other stuff. So Control Shift. I'll keep this because the commented code is there, right? So I'll keep this one. So I will be sharing this code with you people. Try to create this project, configure it properly, try to write these three APIs. One is JSON based, another is request and response based, the third one is MVC based, MVC JSP written page. And then try to create a small JSP page like this. Okay. And then, you run the project, see the output, post it over there in our group. And then tomorrow we will be dealing with in the post lunch, not in the pre lunch. Tomorrow post lunch we'll be dealing with writing get and save APIs, and then how do we call third party web services. If time permits, we'll discuss that tomorrow. If not, we'll complete our Hibernate util properly. We will write a get and save API, get API, save API, and then get a single object, get multiple objects, list kind of stuff. All that, whatever is possible, we'll try to frame. Am I clear? Understood?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any doubts so far? Spring Boot समझ में आया तुम लोगों को? More or less, this is our older project style only. It is that we are getting the flexibility of bringing all the dependencies automatically, and then have what do you call this? A flexibility of giving configurations in a proper way. That is the only thing. Clear?
Yes, sir.
तो इसमें I think ये वाला configure.ft if you want to work on MySQL JSTL. And then here I wanted to add one more thing. This is going to be the 9th step, basically. This is going to be the 10th step. The project for dependencies, run it. I'll remove this one. Okay. तो क्या था वो 9th step basically? 9th step, create web app folder in src main, add webinf/views folders in the project structure for JSP pages. Do not forget this one. Well, I'll be sharing these steps with you. In our chat group. Right. And then I'll be sharing these files right away. I'll stop the recording. Stop it.